Yoga as a moving meditation. How can my practice bring me into a more authentic expression of my true self? When do I move away from the moment and get lost in the mind? And how can I come back into the freedom of right here and right now through my body? So in the Mindfulness Yoga teacher training, we carve out time and space to really directly explore the nature of our own mind. And what we begin to discover is that we are much more than just the limited beliefs of our thinking mind. And in fact, when we're enslaved by every thought, every point of view, every idea based on our conditioned past, when we're enslaved by that entrapment of the mind, this is the root of all human suffering. What's present for me? Without identifying, without making meaning or story. Simply noticing what's moving through, right? So in this training, we're going to explore in great detail all the different practices from a whole variety of wisdom traditions of how to rest as the awareness of the mind without being attached to it.
Allow the sound to move front and back, left.
So we'll be doing practices like seated meditations, walking meditations, yoga nidra practices, relational practices. How do we stay present not only when we're on the cushion, but when we're being triggered in our intimate relationship or when we're spending time with our family and old family wounds arise? How do we stay resting as awareness, able to access our wisdom rather than just collapse into reaction in day-to-day life?
And we notice where they're touching the ground.
So we'll also be exploring mindfulness practices inside yoga. How do we stay fully embodied and aware of each sensation, grounded in the breath while moving the body as a means of anchoring into a vaster perspective, into an inherent wisdom, a space of insight that exists inside your own being when you're right here and now rather than lost in the thinking mind.
Maybe there's a tilt or a tuck of the pelvis or an undulation of the spine.
So the teacher training will be guided by myself and also a Buddhist psychologist who's an expert in the mindfulness practices of Buddhism.
How do I stay in the primordial awareness?
And I use an application of Buddhist principles throughout my work with clients, and that's what I'm doing here in the training, is offering teachers a perspective of a kind of Buddhist lens on psychology and how that applies to when you're working with students, what to look for, how to assess the way things show up in someone's body and or their mind, or the conversations that you have after a yoga class, because so often what they don't talk about in a teacher training is that you're also a counselor to students who are unlocking a lot of material psychologically, emotionally, and don't know where to go except to the teacher. You're lovable, you're lovable, you're lovable, but I have no experience with that. Here are some tools that you could weave into your class themes. Here are some tools that you could use live in a moment with a student who's having a crisis or needing some support. Yeah, I think it's a really important tool to any yoga teacher training because there's a lot of psychology in yoga. People are opening their fascia, they're opening parts where they're holding emotion, and the new wave of psychology really understands that the somatics are inseparable from addressing the mind. You can't address the mind without looking at what's going on in the body.
So in the training you'll be exploring the nature of your own mind and tools to liberate you from your own thoughts, limited beliefs, behavioral patterns, and then learning the tools to support others to that same freedom and liberation in their lives.
Everything that we're doing here, everything that we're doing with mindfulness and in the practice and on the mat is really relating to me, my personal life, my relationships at home. So it's like everything is really fully integrating in a really cool way.
I learned so much being around her, and she really has this way of allowing everyone that she meets to really be where they're at and holds a real loving space for them that really, I feel like, sets this kind of foundation for a real transformation and flowering.
So for the longest time, I felt like I couldn't meditate. I would go to sit on my cushion and the thoughts would just keep coming. And so I felt that I couldn't do the practice. Whereas what you'll discover in this training is that meditation is not the absence of thought. It's being able to rest as awareness no matter what the mind is doing. So whether your thoughts are negative, positive, or neutral, whether there's a lot of thoughts or very little thoughts, we can rest in that same open awareness and tap into that same inherent intelligence that's available to us in the present moment, no matter what the mind is doing. And this is what this training is all about, to train you up to be free no matter what is arising in your thinking mind.